Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we are discussing tanks in the Supertest so far. So these are tanks that may come into the game, may not. It's just they brought into the game so to test them and see how they actually play. I'm hoping to do a video on them. We have, I think, 7 or 8 tanks here, and we'll be discussing some of them. I think this would be a good video for people because obviously there's some tanks here that I haven't actually not seen before, like a Czechoslovakian tank destroyer and what's it called, and a double-barreled American tank, heavy tank. So let's get into it. Also, special thanks to twolinepush.com for the information. It's a very useful and very informative site. I've been using it for knowing what's upcoming in World of Tanks. So I'll put links in the description for that. Go and check it out. It's fantastic. Also, please subscribe and smash the like button if you enjoy the video. Anyway, the first tank is a Soviet Tier 7 medium tank, the T-34M54. So the T-34M54. We'll start off with what it states. It's the T-34M54 is a typical Soviet medium tank which is equipped with an 85mm gun that causes 180 damage per shot. Its standard AP shell penetrates 171mm of armor, while the penetration of its special APCR shell is 210mm. The gun's accuracy is .39 and has an aiming time of 3 seconds and a reload time of 5.6 seconds. The vehicle has a decent frontal turret armor with a thickness of up to 200mm, which is quite tanky. It has a top speed of 55 km an hour and its specific power to weight ratio is 14.7. The vehicle's durability is quite bulky 1,250 hit points. The T-34M54, being a medium tank, is a versatile soldier. It is moderately armoured, mobile and has acceptable firepower. The technical characteristics of the vehicle allows it to cope with the tasks that medium tanks usually fulfill in battle. You can do both, either fight alone or in a group of tanks with the same medium tank, sorry. So we go on to the firepower characteristics of the vehicle. So we start off with damage, which is 180 for AP and APCR rounds, like I said before, but for HE it's 300 damage. Armor penetration is 171 for standard rounds and 210 for armor piercing composite rigid rounds, and 44 for the HE rounds. Has a reload time of 5.6 seconds, an aiming time of 3 seconds, and dispersion at 0.39, which isn't fantastic. It has a gun depression of -7, elevation of 17 degrees, and it can carry 64 pieces of ammo. So that's not too bad, to be fair. It's got quite a punchy gun, but quite poor for accuracy wise. Anyway, next we have mobility. It has a maximum forward speed of 55 km an hour with a maximum reverse speed of 20 km an hour, and it only has 500 horsepower, which is quite lacking. So power to weight ratio, like I said before, it's only 14.7 horsepower per ton. So hull traverse speed is 37 degrees a second, with the turret traverse speed as 36 degrees a second. So survivability, it has a total hit points of 1,250, which is quite bulky for a tank for a medium tank at tier 7. I think that's quite good. Hull armor, 75mm on the front glacis plate, 45 on the sides and 45 on the rear. Turret armor, it has 200mm on the front, 120mm on the side and 75mm on the rear. So review range is 380 meters with a signal range of 700 meters. So next for the shells, it carries standard armor piercing rounds and gold armor piercing composite rigid rounds and HE. And it only has, well, it has 5 crew, which is the commander, gunner, driver, loader and radio operator. So on twolinepush.com we get additional statistics, which is dispersion during turret rotation 0.18, gun dispersion during hull movement and during hull traverse is 0.25, and dispersion after shot is 4. Shell velocity is 900 for AP rounds, 1,125 for APCR rounds, and 900 for HE. Terrain resistances is 1.2, 1.5 and 2.3 for soft, medium and hard in that relative order. So the T-34M54, it's a tank that seems to be very tough in terms of survivability, especially on the front with its turret, with 200mm of turret armor, but it seems relatively slow for a medium tank, and its accuracy is pretty poor as well, so I think that's to counter it. Overall, it seems like a relatively well balanced tank. Anyway, next we have a weird tank, which is the ShPTK-TVP 100. So this is a Czechoslovakian tank destroyer. So it states, the ShPTK-TVP 100, mouthful, is the first Czechoslovakian tank destroyer in the game. The vehicle is a turret that can rotate 360 degrees and a cylindrical gun with 250 hit points of damage per shot. The penetration of the main armor piercing shell is 250 mils, and the special heat round is 330mm of armor it can go through, which allows you to cause damage to high tier enemies. The aiming time is 1.9 seconds, accuracy is 0.41, and the reload time is 7.5 seconds. The thickness of the armor plates and the frontal protection of the turret turret and hull only reaches 65mm, so that's way for thin. The vehicle's durability is 1150 hit points, top speed of 55 km an hour, power to weight ratio is 21.9 horsepower per ton. In terms of gameplay, the vehicle is a fairly mobile and fast firing tank destroyer that can hit a variety of targets. Thanks to its good rate of fire, you won't have to worry about wasting shells on fast moving targets, and the high penetration of the special heat shells will help you fight heavily armoured high tier enemies. So we'll have a look at statistics. So we started with firepower. As it said, it deals 250 damage for the standard AP rounds and the gold high explosive anti-tank rounds, and 420 hit points of damage for the HE rounds. Armor penetration is 250mm for the standard AP rounds, like it said before, and 330mm for the heat rounds, with only 100mm penetration for the HE rounds. The reload time is 7.5 seconds, with an aiming time of 1.9 seconds and a dispersion of 0.41. Gun depression is only -6 degrees, so it will struggle if it ever has to go on a hill, and elevation is only 20 degrees also. It can carry 66 rounds of ammo as well. So, firepower, it's got quite a punchy gun, which means it's a bit like the, it seems like the Scorpion, especially with only that 65mm wafer thin armor. Anyway, mobility. Maximum forward speed is 55 km an hour and reverse speed is 20 km an hour. Power, it has 700 horsepower with a power to weight ratio of 21.9 horsepower per ton. Hull traverse speed is 42 degrees a second and turret traverse speed is 32 degrees a second. So mobility, it seems quite fast and seems relatively powerful in terms of engine, and it can turn relatively quickly. Anyway, next, survivability. It has only 1,150 hit points. Its armor is 65mm on the front for its hull, 40mm on the side and 40mm on the rear. So that's the same for the turret as well. So it's very, very thin armor, wafer thin, like I said. It has a view range of only 370 meters, so you're going to struggle to spot for yourself, so you probably will need binoculars. Signal range is 850 meters. So next we have a look at what shells it's got. It carries armor piercing shells, high explosive anti-tank shells for its gold rounds, and high explosive for its third round. So it carries only 4 crewmen, which is the commander, gunner, driver, and loader. So there's some additional statistics, which is dispersion during turret rotation, which is 0.08. Gun dispersion during hull movement and hull traverse is 0.18. Dispersion after shot is 4. Shell velocity for AP rounds is 897. For shell velocity for heat rounds is 795, and for HE rounds is 900 shell velocity. Terrain resistances is 1, 1.35 and 1.95 for soft, medium and hard, I believe. I don't know if it's the other way around. I think it's that way though. So, the ShPTK-TVP 100 seems like another Scorpion G sort of thing. It seems like Scorpion G and SU-130PM. It's relatively quick, relatively nimble, with a big punchy gun. but you will struggle with. I think you will struggle with its hit points because obviously it's not very many. It's just like the Scorpion G, very limited on hit points. So that'll be probably one of your worries. But it seems to be like a reasonably well-rounded tank. Anyway, next we have the Soviet Tier 8 heavy tank, the K2. So, it states, the K2, a Tier 8 Soviet heavy tank, is coming to the closed super test. The vehicle features reliable armour for its tier. The frontal hull armour reaches 160mm, while the turret armour reaches 250mm of armour. So not as much as some like with the likes of the Centurion. Its rear is also protected by relatively thick arm plates. Its good durability of 1,700 hit points allows you to emerge victorious from many duels. It has a top speed of only 30 km an hour, which is quite sluggish, and its power to weight ratio is 13.6. That's pretty poor. So the tank is equipped with a standard 122mm D25T gun that causes the alpha damage of 390 hit points damage per shot. Penetration value of the standard shell is 196mm, while the gold heat rounds can go through 270mm of armour. It has an aiming time of 2.9 seconds, a dispersion of 0.44, and reload time of 15 seconds. So, the K2 is a well-protected heavy tank that can initiate attacks. Thanks to its armour, the vehicle can draw enemy fire, allowing less armoured allies to advance. However, do not forget about its mediocre mobility. Taking into account the strengths and weaknesses will help unleash the full potential of this vehicle. So, we go on to the characteristics of this tank. Firepower is just your standard T25T gun, which has alpha damage of 390 for AP and heat rounds, 530 for HE, armor penetration 196 for AP, heat rounds is 270mm of armor penetration and 68mm for HE rounds. Reload time is 15 seconds, dispersion is 0.44, aiming time is 2.9, its gun depression is only -6 with a gun elevation of 25 degrees, and it can only carry 30 rounds, which isn't fantastic. Although, to be fair, you are firing pretty much every week, so, you know, not too much to worry about, I suppose. Mobility wise, maximum speed is only 30 km forwards, like I said before, and backward speed is 14 km an hour. You'll be watching the snails go by while you're trying to reverse, or you'll get destroyed. It has 750 horsepower, which gives it a power to weight ratio of 13.6 horsepower per ton. Hull traverse speed is 23 degrees a second, with the turret traverse speed of 23 degrees a second. So, very, very sluggish. Next, survivability. It has a total hit points of 1,700 hit points, which is quite relatively tanky. Hull armor is 160 mils on the front glacis, 160 on the side, which is quite good, so it'll be pretty good at side scraping. 120 mils on the rear as well, so not too bad actually. Turret armor, 250 mils on the front, 160 on the side, and 160 on the back. It only, Jesus, its view range is only 350 meters, so that's pretty poor. A signal range of 730 meters. So its shells, if you haven't guessed already, it carries armor-piercing rounds, high explosive anti-tank rounds, and HE rounds. It also only has 4 crew, which is the commander, gunner, driver, and loader. So, the additional statistics of this vehicle. Dispersion during turret rotation is 0.08, which is quite good. Gun dispersion during hull movement and hull traverse is 0.25 though. Dispersion after shot is 4, as standard, and shell velocity is 790 for AP rounds, 820 for heat rounds, and 790 for HE again. Terrain resistances is 1.2, 1.6, and 2.7 for soft, medium, and heavy. So overall, the K2, it seems like a I don't know. It seems just like an IS with more armor sort of thing. It's just another sort of copycat sort of tank, I think. It's just, I don't really see that having much of a different place than the IS-3 or, you know, some of its counterparts. So, I don't know. Or like the Defender, I don't know. Anyway, next we have the Soviet heavy tank again at tier 8, which is the Object 259A. So, it states, the Object 259A has a characteristic feature typical of all IS-7 prototypes, a pike nose. For those of you who don't know, a pike nose is actually a pointed nose that sort of curves towards the front of the hull. So its frontal hull armor reaches 110mm, so including the slope and the angling, that probably will be about 160, 170 perhaps. The tank's turret is streamlined cast with frontal armor of 260mm. The vehicle has 1,450 hit points with a maximum speed of 60 km an hour. Jesus. Power to weight ratio is pretty poor though at 15 horsepower per ton, and view range is 380 meters. The tank is armed with a 122mm gun with an average damage per shot of 420 hit points. Standard APCR shell penetrates 233mm of armor, so it carries armor pieces composite rigid as standard. That's quite good. The gold heat rounds go through 285mm of armor. The aiming time of the gun is 3.2 seconds, reload time is 15 seconds, and dispersion is 0.42. So, the Object 259A is a frontline heavy tank. Thanks to its good armor and relatively good maneuverability, the vehicle can occupy advantageous positions and engage in successful positional combat. Also keep in mind that the gun's accuracy won't let you fire effectively from long range. So, if we look at the statistics for the Object 259A, damage wise, it can dish out 420 damage on its APCR rounds and its heat rounds, and 530 for its HE rounds. Armor penetration is 233 for its standard APCR rounds and 285, like I said before, for the heat rounds. Only 61 for the HE rounds though. Reload time is 15 seconds, aiming time 3.2, dispersion is 0.42, gun depression is -6 with an elevation of 16, and it can only carry, well, it can carry about 38, which is alright I suppose for 422mm gun. So, mobility. The Object 259A has a maximum forward speed of 60 km an hour, which, like I said before, very fast for a heavy tank. But backward speed is even worse than the K2, 12 km an hour. You definitely will be seeing the slugs go past you. So it has 900 horsepower and a power to weight ratio of 15 horsepower per ton. Its hull traverse speed is 30 degrees a second and turret traverse speed is 29 degrees a second. So mobility is quite good, to be fair. It's got a nice punchy engine and quite fast speed. I don't know how they're going to balance this out apart from its accuracy wise, because it seems like it's got a lot of armor as well, which I'm going to get to in a sec. So survivability, it has a total hit points of 1,450, which is, so it's not the most amount of hit points for a tier 8 heavy tank. Hull armor is 110mm and 100mm, 110mm from the front, 100mm from the side, and 90mm at the rear. For the turret armor, it's 260mm at the front, 155mm on the side, and 100mm on the rear. So, turret view range, it has 380 meters of view range and a signal range of 720 meters. Shells, it carries armor-piercing composite rigid rounds for standard, high explosive anti-tank rounds as your gold rounds, and HE for your, HE. So it carries 5 crewmen, which is the commander, gunner, loader, commander, gunner, driver, and 2 loaders. So, additional statistics is dispersion during turret rotation is 0.12, gun dispersion during hull movement and hull traverse is 0.24, dispersion after shot is 4, shell velocity is 1,400 for APCR, which is quite good for your standard rounds, and it's 820 for heat rounds and 790 for HE. Terrain resistances is 1.3 for soft, 1.7 for medium, and 2.5 for hard. So, the Object 259A. It seems a little overpowered. I mean, It's not the tankiest in terms of hit points, but it's got a lot of armor and its gun's not the most accurate, but it packs a punch. And it's very fast, so it's going to be darting around the map. I'm not too sure about that tank. That may need balancing a bit more. Anyway, next we have a tank that has been in the game for, well, it's been in the game files since 2016-15, I think it was. So it's got no information apart from two-line push saying that it may be a possible birthday gift. It's been in the game files since 2016, and the statistics will last change in 2020. So the firepower, it has 110 damage for its standard AP and APCR rounds, and 175 for HE. Armor penetration is 108 for the standard AP rounds, 124 for the armor piercing composite rigid rounds, and 38 for its HE rounds. Has a reload time of 3.7 seconds, dispersion at 100 meters is 0.38, aiming time is 1.9 seconds. So gun depression is minus 10 degrees, that's quite good, and 20 degrees for elevation. And it carries 120 pieces of ammo. That's quite a lot indeed. So, mobility. Maximum speed forward of 30 kilometers an hour, and in reverse is 15 kilometers an hour, which is pretty typical of a tier 5 heavy tank. Power, it has 900 horsepower, so a nice punchy engine, with only 13.8 horsepower per ton for power to weight ratio. I thought it'd be more than that, but okay. Hull traverse speed 35 degrees a second, and total traverse speed is 24 degrees a second. So mobility, it's just a German tier 5 heavy tank really. It's not very fast, it's not very good at turning round, it's just a tier 5 German heavy tank. Anyway, next, survivability has 920 hit points with 80mm of armor all round for your hull and your turret. View range is 360 meters and signal range is 620. So shells, it carries armor piercing rounds as standard, armor piercing composite rigid rounds as your gold rounds, and high explosive for your high explosive rounds. Crew, it carries 5 crewmen with a commander, gunner, driver, radio operator and loader. So I don't know what that be, but it's probably right in what they're saying, probably a birthday gift or something, or an anniversary gift or whatever you want to call them. It's just, to me, that's just another German heavy tank. Not really too excited for that one, but anyway, next we have one that I think a lot of people are looking forward to, which is the TS-54, an American tier 8 heavy tank. So this again has got nothing that Wargaming have stated, but we'll start off with statistics. Firepower, it can deal 280 damage for its AP and APCR rounds, and 370 hit points for its HE rounds. Armor penetration is 200 for AP rounds, 252 for APCR rounds, and 47 for HE. Reload time is 8.5 seconds for each barrel. Double shot preparation time, so to fire both shots at the same time, is 3 seconds. Block time is 6 seconds, and gun change time is 3 seconds again. Dispersion at 100 meters is 0.44 meters. Aiming time is 3.5 seconds. Gun depression is -8, and gun elevation is 20 degrees. Ammo capacity, you can carry 40 rounds of ammo, so that's 20 for each barrel, roughly. So not too bad, I suppose. Mobility, now this is where it lacks a lot. Maximum speed forward is 35, and in reverse is 15. That's quite slow. Power, it only has 570 horsepower. So that gives off a very poor power to weight ratio of 11.4. Hull traverse speed is 30 degrees a second, and turret traverse speed is 33 degrees a second. So survivability has a total hit points of 1,400. Hull armor, it has 102mm on the front of its glacis plate, 64mm on the side, and 38 on the rear. The turret, it has a whopping 12 inches of armor on the front of its turret, so that's 305mm. And it also has 127mm on the side, which is 5 inches of armor, and 76mm on the rear, which is 3 inches of armor. View range, it has 380 meters of view range, which is not bad. It's actually, to be fair, that's standard, I suppose, these days. Signal range is 745 meters as well. So it carries armor-piercing shells, armor-piercing composite rigid for your gold rounds, and HE for your HE. Crew. It carries 5 crew, which is the commander, gunner, driver, and 2 loaders. I assume one of them will do a radio operator's job also. So, additional statistics for the TS54. Its gun dispersion during turret rotation is 0.06, so not bad. Gun dispersion during hull movement is 0.12, and during hull traverse is the same, 0.12. Dispersion after shot is standard 4, and shell velocity of the standard AP rounds is 878. APCR rounds is 1098, and HE rounds is 878. Terrain resistances is 1.4, 1.7, and 3.4 for soft, medium, and heavy, I believe. So TS54, I'm actually quite excited for this tank because it's an American double-barreled tank, so it'd be interesting for a change that it's not the Soviet ones. It's very slow, well armoured on the turret though, so not bad whatsoever. So now we go on to the one that I'm actually really looking forward to, which is the Tier 9 British heavy tank, the FV4201 Chieftain Proto type. So this was released. This has been released to the Supertest. I'm looking forward to it because it'll be a Chieftain that people can, well, free-to-play people can get, not just Clan Wars people. It states, the Tier 9 British FV4201 Chieftain prototype heavy tank is sent to the closed Supertest stage. The vehicle has a 120mm gun with 400 damage a shot. The penetration value of the standard shell is 262mm and the gold APCR shell penetrates 310mm. The gun's accuracy is 0.36 and has an aiming time of 2.3 seconds with a reload time of 12 seconds. Thanks to its sloped armour, the thickness of the turret front of the vehicle reaches 350mm of armour. A lot of guns are going to struggle to go through that even with gold loaded. So, while the hull has 80mm of well sloped armour, the tank also has good gun depression and elevation angles of -10 and 20 degrees. So it'll be very good on a hill, on a hull down position. Its durability is 1950 hit points. The vehicle's top speed is 35 km an hour and its power to weight ratio is 15. So that's typical because it has a Leyland Motors engine in it most likely, which was pretty naff. And if you didn't know, when the British sold these over to other countries, they actually swapped out the engine and stuck a more powerful engine in because the Leyland one was that poor. So anyway, the FV4201 Chieftain Proto, it's a classic British heavy tank. Taking into account its strengths and weaknesses will help unleash the full potential of this vehicle. So, it's looking quite nice so far. I don't know if, when it was saying about the armour, I don't know if that includes the slope, but I don't know. Usually that's not like wargaming to include the sloped armour as well, the effective slope of the armour. Anyway, so characteristics. Its firepower, it deals 400 damage, like I said before, for APCR as standard and APCR as your gold, and 515 damage for your HE rounds. Armour penetration is 262 for standard APCR rounds and 310 for gold APCR rounds. And armour penetration is 120 mils for HE rounds. Reload time is 12 seconds, dispersion is 0.36, aiming time is 2.3 seconds, with a gun depression of -10 and 20 degrees for elevation, and it can also carry 59 pieces of ammo, so that's firepower. It seems quite good. It's not the most accurate in the world, but you know, it's something you can put vertical stabilizers on and what have you. Next, we have mobility. Maximum speed is 35 km an hour forwards and 12 km an hour in reverse. It also has only 750 horsepower with only 15 horsepower per ton for power to weight ratio. Hull reverse speed is 30 degrees a second with a turret reverse speed of 32 degrees a second. So mobility is poor because, like I said, Leyland Motors engine, not fantastic. Anyway, next, survivability. Total hit points, it has 1,950. Hull armour is 80mm on its front glacis plate, upper glacis plate that is. 60mm on the side, 35 on the rear. Turret armour 350 on the front, which is quite a lot of armour. 120 on the side and 35 on the rear. View range is quite a good 400 meters with a signal range of 750 meters. So shells, it carries standard armor piercing composite rigid round, which is good, and it carries also gold armor piercing composite rigid rounds and HE rounds. So for your crew, you only carry 4 crewmen, which is quite good. You have commander, gunner, driver and radio operator, which I'm assuming is also the loader. So additional statistics, we have dispersion during turret rotation, which is 0.08, which is quite good. Gun dispersion during hull movement and hull traverse is 0.12 again, which is quite good. Dispersion after shot is standard 4. Shell velocity of APCR rounds standard is 1,150, and for your gold APCR rounds it's 1,350. For HE shell velocity is 1,067. Terrain resistances is 1.1, 1.3 and 2.3 for your soft, medium and hard. So the FV4201 Chieftain prototype. I'm actually really looking forward to this tank. I mean, it's a Chieftain that hopefully it might be a reward tank. You know, the one where you grind the XP for, like the Striv K and the 122TM and the Object 279A. I think it'd be really good if that's how you get it, because it'd be a tank that everyone can try to get, or even buy in the store if you want to. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend that because it'd be what, 50 odd quid or something, if not 60. But anyway, that's that. I think it. Overall, these tanks, some of them are quite interesting. I mean, granted, there's a couple that are a bit naff, but I'm actually looking forward to some of these. So that is the end of the video. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. And remember to subscribe so you can catch future videos just like this one. As always, I hope to see you in the next one.